Hey guys, I'm Bella, the Maker Mama Boss Lady behind Fiber and Fox, and this is not exactly an episode of my podcast. If you're just finding me through this video, this is not my normal content, kind of a combo, but I am a crochet designer and I design crochet patterns, talk about those here. I also knit, and I have a bi-weekly, monthly-ish podcast where I kind of share what I'm working on, what I bought, what I'm designing, all that sort of normal fiber arts podcasty stuff. But today I'm kind of doing, I don't know, it's somewhere between like a holiday gift guide and my normal content plus a little bit of like homeschool. I don't know. So some backstory. I'm also a second generation homeschooler. So I am a homeschool mom. I have two kids and they are 5 and 1, but I would say that we've been homeschooling since birth because I'm very much a learning as a lifelong kind of thing sort of person, and we read a lot of books. So what I want to share with you today is some of my favorite fiber arts adjacent, mostly knit related, there's one crochet in there, or yarn or craft kind of related children's books. And my kids, like I said, are on the younger side, so we read a lot of picture books. And for preschool last year, we did a challenge of reading 1,000 books within the school year for my daughter. And through that time, we visited a ton of libraries. We frequent not only our local town library, but all the other ones in Connecticut. You're able to get into any library with a town library card. And we roll up with our book crate and we get like 40, 50 books every time. And the librarians, they just love me. But yeah, we're super into reading, super into books. And for my daughter's like kindergarten, first grade-ish now. And we're again trying to read another 1,000 picture books, which is a much easier challenge when your kids are smaller. Once they start reading chapter books or reading on their own, 1,000 is a lot. But right now she's learning how to read and we read together. So keeping tabs on all the books that we're reading together, trying to hit 1,000 again. That being said, I wanted to share with you some of my favorite knitting, yarn, crochet, craft related books. Because I know that a lot of my viewers, I don't know, I'd be curious to know if you are a homeschool mama as well, but I know that there's a lot of mamas that are viewing and a lot of grandmas that are viewing. So if you are a maker mama grandma and are looking for either some Christmas gifts or just fun books to have in your book library, I'm a huge fan of living books and books with beautiful illustrations and books that not only are cute but have some lessons or morals or make you think about something, that kind of thing. So I just want to share these with you. So this content might not be for everybody, but we're going to be focusing on picture books, fiber arts related. So I have about 15 or so that I'm going to share. Some of them are in my possession and some I'll just put up on the screen. But a lot of these are ones that we own, and then I got some out of the library as well. And these are all that we've read and enjoyed. Obviously, there's more out there, I'm sure. And if you have some favorites, please put them down below. I did at one point poll the community over on Instagram and got some recommendations too, but these are the ones that we've enjoyed. So if you have favorites, leave those for somebody else. And I am going to put a list down below the video, linking over to my Amazon storefront. So if you want to purchase them there, you can, but absolutely check out your local libraries, check free book boxes, that sort of thing. So I'm not saying you have to buy them, but if you are looking to purchase some gifts, I will make a list and then I get a little kickback from Amazon from referring you, but either way, these are great books, wherever you may find them. So I'm going to start with my favorite, and then from there, we're going to kind of go in no particular order. So book number 1, let me show you. This is, without a doubt, my favorite one. This book is called Extra Yarn, and it's by Mac Barrett. And I'm just going to give you a quick little synopsis and maybe a little peek inside of each book. But it has these beautiful, like, knit print illustrations. And this is a really fanciful little book, and this is a Caldecott honor, a medal award-winning whatever as well. And it's a book about Annabelle, and she lives in a cold, dark little town, and everything is like black and white and gray. And she finds a box of yarn filled with every color, and she starts knitting. And she knits things for herself and for all the people she knows and for animals, but there was still extra yarn. And she just keeps knitting out of this little box, and it turns out it's like a magical box, so she knits for like everybody she knows. And at one point she's knitting for, yeah, this is my favorite page. She knits for the whole town. She knits the building sweaters. She's knitting sweaters for everybody, and it just brings so much color to this otherwise very dark and gray book. And I think the illustrations are just delightful. And she ends up having to fight some bad guys kind of for her box of extra yarn, and they try to swindle her, but the yarn stays with her. And it's just really sweet. And I love books that kind of have I don't know, this is a creative illustration style where it looks like it's stamped maybe? Stamped, painted. Really, really, really cute. So Extra Yarn by Mac, did I say Barrett? Barnett. Mac Barnett. I will link them correctly for you. Illustrations by John Claus. Really sweet. Love that one. Definitely my favorite. It was gifted to me by Emily of A Rambling Yarn. And yep, that's family fave. So the rest of these in no particular order, and I'm not trying to like do a ranking of these books or anything. These are just in a stack. This one's from our library. This one is called The Mitten Tree. Sorry about the glare. It's got the plastic cover on it. The Mitten Tree by Candace Christensen, illustrated by Elaine Greenstein. And this one, not only about knitting and mittens, but it's a really sweet story about kind of compassion and generosity and looking out for the well-being of others. It's about a old woman who lives alone, and she once had children, but they've since grown. And she's all by herself, and she can see the bus stop from her house, and she notices every day all the kids there, and all the kids play in the snow except for this one little boy in blue who doesn't play in the snow because he doesn't have any mittens, and he has to keep his hands in his pockets. So she, in the night, sneaks out, and she in the night knits some mittens and then hangs them on the tree by the bus stop. And the little boy finds them, and he's able to play with his friends because now he has mittens. And she continues to look out and run this secret mitten operation for the kids whose mittens don't match, or they've lost one, or they have holes. And she decorates this mitten tree. And nobody knows where the mittens are coming from. But every time she runs out of yarn, somebody puts more on her doorstep. And it's just very sweet and a good story about taking care of each other and how we can use knitting, fiber arts, crochet, yarn, etc. for the benefit of others and to spread love. And I think that's a really sweet one. So that's the Mitten Tree. This one is the Mitten String. This one is from our personal collection. I don't know what to do about the glare, I'm sorry. The Mitten String by Jennifer Rosner, illustrated by Christina Swarner. And this one is another one that really focuses on compassion and looking out for others, and kind of how yarn is something that can bring people together, kind of connect people. It's about a little girl who, I'm not sure when it's set, but it's, I think, some historic content to it because that's her family. A little girl in a Jewish family, and they end up taking in a single mother with a baby, and the mother is deaf. And I like this one in particular because we do ASL, American Sign Language, as our second language for school, and my daughter's super interested in sign language, and we've put a lot of time into that and have had some exposure to the deaf community. And so I think that this one is especially nice, even though they're not using ASL in it, just bringing awareness to her about not only different cultures, but also different people and their different abilities. So it's cool that the little girl wants to help this mother in some way, and she knows how to knit. And she notices that the mother has to tie a string to her wrist when she's sleeping. So the baby sleeps in the cradle and the mother sleeps in the bed, and she ties a string in between them to connect them so that when the baby wakes, that the deaf mother can know that the baby's awake. And that's not something I've ever thought about. So it's one of those stories that kind of makes you think, like, huh, I wouldn't have thought of that. But the little girl, Ruthie, ends up knitting a set of mittens that connect the mama and baby Aaron, so that they can be warm and cozy and be connected as well. So it's just a sweet, sweet story about how yarn can connect people despite differences in cultures and all of that. So it's got cute illustrations, and it's just really sweet. So I like that one a lot, and it actually has a lot about history and Jewish culture and deaf culture. And some, I didn't buy this one, but I think it was like some sort of, it's from the PJ library that shares Jewish culture and values through children's books. So I don't know if it was like from a book program or something. But yeah, you make our world a bit better with every stitch is what it says on the back. So I like the Mitten String quite a bit. Camera was a little cockeyed. Did I straighten it out a little? I don't know. This is another one about looking out for others and connections, people, there's a better way to say that. Interpersonal relations? I don't know. But relationships between people despite differences. And this is called A Hat for Mrs. Goldman. And I think Emily also gifted me this one. It's a story about knitting in love by Michelle Edwards and G. Brian Karras, I think is what that says on the bottom. And on the back, it says that last year Mrs. Goldman taught Sophia how to knit. And the story is about Mrs. Goldman, who I think is a widow that lives next door. And she knits things for the neighbors. And it's a Jewish community, and she's taking care of her friends and neighbors, keeping everybody warm. But when she walks her dog, she has nothing to keep her warm. She needs something. So she teaches this little girl, Sophia, how to knit, and she's not really good at it. But she learns how to make pom-poms, and she's pretty good at that. So she's worried about Mrs. Goldman and her walking her dog, and she tries to knit her a hat, and she just can't quite get it. But she ends up taking all of her pom-poms. So she knits a kind of wonky hat. It has a lot of holes. And then she takes all of her pom-poms and she puts them on to the hat. I'm trying to find a picture of the hat. And when Sophia is done, Mrs. Goldman's hat is the most special hat in the world. So she makes her this really sweet, really thoughtful pom-pom hat. And she rushes next door to give it to her neighbor. And Mrs. Goldman is just thrilled to pieces that this little girl thought of her and used the craft that she taught her to do something for somebody else. And it's very, very, very sweet. Another good taking care of others with what you got kind of story. And a lot of these, this one isn't particularly, they're making mittens. A lot of these are kind of winter focused because they are mittens and sweaters and whatnot, but they're not necessarily Christmas or anything. We do a Christmas countdown book advent every year where we wrap more than 24. We sometimes bundle them up because we have a ton of them at this point, but I've collected at least 24 Christmas, winter, knitting, penguin kind of related books, and we don't do Santa, so most of the books are either knitwear related or polar bears or that kind of thing. We have lots of the nativity story ones, but 24 of those would be a lot. So we mix them all in, and I wrap them all up every year, and we number them, and my daughter picks one out every night at bedtime. So she opens one little present package, and we read a story. So a lot of these stories are in our winter Christmas advent box, and they go away for part of the year and come back out, and it's kind of like a new surprise every time. But this one is probably this one I don't own, but I would like to purchase. This one is Little Bear's Big Sweater, and it's a touch and feel book, so it has texture to it. And it's by David Bedford and Caroline Pedler. David Bedford is the author. And this one it's set in they're playing outside in the meadows and stuff, so it's not particularly wintry, but it is sweatery. And it's about two brothers. And I have a daughter and a son, but I like the sibling relationship that is established in this book. So the older bear grows out of his sweater, and I can't show you, but the dark green stripes everywhere. So the dark teal throughout the whole book is like a velvety material, so it's very tactile, which I like. But Big Bear grows out of his sweater, and it gets handed down to his little brother. And the little brother doesn't really treat it the way Big Bear wishes he would, and he's annoyed at him at some point, and he gets mad and tells him to go away. And Little Bear gets sad and he runs away, and as he's running through the woods, his sweater untangles. So on this page you can follow with your finger the texture through the woods to find Little Bear, because Big Bear feels bad and he realizes it's not very fun to play by himself, and he misses his very sad little brother, and the sweater comes unraveled, and Little Bear feels really bad, and they hug and make up, and they bring it back to Mama Bear, who is just a champion because she says no problem, and the next morning she's knit them 2 new sweaters, and it literally says the next day, no problem at all, now you have 2 full-size sweaters. So Mama Bear, she a good knitter. And now they're both textured. And the older bear says, oh, now I can be just like you, to his little brother. And it's very sweet. One of those very relatable in my house sibling sort of things. So Little Bear's Big Sweater, probably my second favorite. Very cute. I need to get this one for myself. The next one is, I have two of them because it's a traditional folktale. I think it says in here that it's a Ukrainian folktale. Yes, a Ukrainian folktale adapted and illustrated by Jan Brett. Anything by Jan Brett, highly recommend. If you're not familiar with her as far as children's books goes, she's fantastic. She does a lot of folk tales, a lot of like traditional stories that you've heard before, like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, but she does it in like a different setting, in a different cultural reference. And she's very, I mean, I can't speak to knowing exactly how traditional Ukrainian folkwear looks, but she, in my mind at least, tries really hard to capture the cultures that she's portraying. And Jan Brett always does this cute thing where on like the sidebar of the page, there's like the main pictures, and then there's like this sidebar that kind of always shows you what's coming next on the page. So this one is the same story as this one. It's just two different tellings of the same folktale. This one I prefer because I think Jan Brett's illustrations are just lovely, and this one has an owl in it, and my daughter is very partial to owls, so we like this one very much. But this one, my daughter and husband think is hysterical because the animals make funny faces, and it has some repetition to it where like the animals always say the same thing every page, which kids like the repetition. But basically the story, one or the other, is about a mitten, and in this little boy, his name is Nicky, I think, and his mother he wants his grandmother to knit him some mittens, and he asks Baba to knit him some Snow White mittens, and she's like, Nicky, you're going to lose your Snow White mittens in the snow. And he's like, no, Grandma, it's going to be fine. That's not how he talks, but throughout the entire book, there's all this beautiful knitwear. So it's not really a book about knitting, other than he asks the grandma to knit. It's more about the mitten itself. But so he goes out, he immediately loses his mittens, as little boys will do. So he only has one, and some animals find it, and everybody decides that it's just the coziest place, and they end up stuffing like, I don't know, like 8 animals in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, and then the 9th animal comes along and it can no longer fit. But Grandma Baba there, she's a good knitter, because they got, I'm trying to find the picture of everybody shoved in there. Everybody all up in that mitten. It's got some good stretch to it. And then the tiniest little mouse comes along, and it makes in this book it makes the bear sneeze, and they all blow out of the mitten. And then Nicky finds it and brings it home to his grandma, and the last page is just them looking at it befuddled, like, what went on here? So it's very sweet. This one, same story, slightly different animals, a little more repetition. And this one has really pretty illustrations as well, with lots of good knitwear. And the grandma loves him so much that she makes him mittens, and in this one the mittens are red. And he loses it, and again, everybody climbs up all in that mitten. Very, very stretchy. And along comes the little mouse, and then they tell him there's no room, and he convinces them. So he squeezes on in, and then this is what my children think is just hysterical. Or my husband and my daughter think this is just the funniest thing. Blows the mittens to smithereens. And the best part is when Grandma and the little boy, I'm not sure if he has a name in this book, they go out looking, and then they find this, and they're just flabbergasted, like, what could have gone on here? And the boy's face is just like, yeah. So this one's just kind of silly, and every time they squeeze another animal into the mitten, they make some silly faces too. I'm trying to find this one that's funny about the fox. Yeah, this. They think this is funny too, where they're all making faces, smushing animals in there. And this one comes with a hot cocoa recipe, and it's just cute. 2 cute versions of the same, and I'm sure there's other tellings of this mitten story, but just very sweet. And then another Jan Brett. Like I said, there's a lot of Jan Brett that have winter wear and knitting, and this one is The Hat by Jan Brett, and I don't know if this is a traditional story or if Hedgie is her own creation. This one doesn't say that it's a folktale. But this is about Lisa and a little hedgehog, and I'm not sure if it says where this one is set. But again, it's got just really traditional looking. This one looks more Scandinavian, I'd say. Maybe Norway or something, I'm not sure. Beautiful, beautiful knitwear. And this one, the hedgehog climbs up into a hat, or a sock. He climbs in a sock and he uses it as a hat. And then all the other animals get jealous and they end up taking all of Lisa's knitwear. And poor Lisa has to go find it all. So all the farmyard animals are wearing the knitwear because they got jealous of Hedgie. And how ridiculous they look. Don't they know that animals should never wear clothes? And poor Lisa has to chase them all down. And there's a couple other books that have Hedgie in it too, I think. There's another one where she brings him inside for winter and he like sleeps in a tea cozy or something. So very sweet. And then there's a really beautiful, it's not really knitwear, but there's a beautiful winter one of Goldilocks and the Three Bears set in Alaska, I think. Canada, perhaps. Very, very beautiful. Great illustrator. I like Jan Brett a lot. And then this one, I think we got this from a free book box. This one's kind of random. It's called Penguin in Love. And this one's a board book, but I'm assuming it probably comes in a paperback version as well. It's by Selena Yoon, who I'm not familiar with outside of this book, but she's got a couple other penguin related books. This is Penguin in Love. So Penguin sets out to find love. One day, Penguin was looking for love, and instead he found a mitten. He sets out to find love, and instead he finds a mitten, and then this is Penguin's friend Bootsy, and she's a knitter, and basically they end up knitting for a whole bunch of people, whole bunch of creatures in their community, and following the yarn trail, and they're knitting for warmth, and then it turns out that they're knitting for love, and they knit their way all over the place, and the yarn has brought them together. And apparently they are penguins in love. It was a great big love adventure. It's kind of odd, but it's cute. So yeah, this is another one that kind of goes with our Christmas winter books. And yeah, I don't know, there might not be a paper version. I will link it if there is. But this one's nice because the baby can't destroy it. So that's Penguin in Love. That's what I think, Emily. How many knitting books have you bought me? This is a thing, apparently. This is Ned the Knitting Pirate. This is not Christmas, winter related at all, other than the knitting. I don't talk about it much on this channel, but I have a thing for piracy. I like me some pirates. So this is a combination of some of my favorite things, pirates and knitting. And this is by Diana Murray, illustrated by Leslie Lamel. And this is Ned the Knitting Pirate. And Ned is a knitting pirate, and the other pirates just don't really get it, and they sing a song. We're pirates out sailing the sea, so scruffy and scrappy and happy are we. We're tougher than gristle and barnacle grit. We heave, we hoe, we swab, and Ned says, we knit! And they're like, no, Ned, we don't do that. And pirates don't knit, pirates don't wear hats. And they kind of make fun of Ned. And it turns out that the knitting becomes very helpful. I've asked this be no time for knitting, Ned. But Ned rolled out the catapult, and I've got a plan, he said. And he ends up fighting a sea monster with his knitting. And so it's very cute. And again, another one that kind of has repetition to it, which is always fun. And then it turns out that the pirates do knit. Ned converts them into knitting pirates, which is pretty much my life story. I'm a knitting pirate, I think. So I really like this one. And that concludes the pile that I actually have in my lap of books that I own. That was my husband in the basement door, I'm sorry. He's doing some yard work outside with the kids. But I'm going to show you, I have a couple listed on my phone that I've gotten from the library different times. Different libraries. I didn't go around the whole state and collect all the books, but I'll put a picture up on the screen and give you a little synopsis of each of these. So we have, hang on just a moment. So another one we've really enjoyed was Sweater Weather by Matt Fellon, I think is how you say it. And it's very short on words, but it's got cute illustrations, and it's about a mama that has to get all of her children ready to go out in the cold, and she's putting the sweaters on and the children can't find theirs, and it's just a whole like, come on, it's time to go. And you know how it is when you suddenly need the thing and you're like, where'd that go? And they're just getting ready to go out of the house in the winter. It's a lot of work. So the mama takes basically all day getting all the knitwear on all the children, and then it's nighttime. So it's a very short and sweet book, but again, I can relate. Very cute. And also, I should say, I don't know if I said at the beginning, Crochet at Home Mom is a design by Kelsey of Crafting for Weeks. I don't know if she still sells them, but this was by her. So Sweater Weather was cute. Leave Me Alone by Vera Broskall. I'm not sure if that's how you say her last name, but that's my best guess. Normally I don't go for books that have phrases in them that I would not want my children to repeat at me a lot. Like, leave me alone. Not something I want you to say to me or your sibling. But this one's really cute. It's about a grandma who, she needs some time to get her knitting done, and she's got children, grandchildren all around her, and it's just all a bustle, and she can't get the knitting done, so she needs them to leave her alone. And she ends up traveling all over the place and ends up in outer space. And even the aliens won't leave her alone to knit, and it ends up being very sweet and cute at the end. So it kind of outweighs the leave me aloneness. And it's got really quirky drawings, and it's just a really, really silly one that, again, isn't necessarily winter themed. It's hard to get the knitting done sometimes, you know? And that one features a grandmother again. So good if you're the grandma. It's a cute book. And then Crafty Llama by Mike Kerr isn't necessarily knitting. It's more of a maker book, and it's about a llama that starts like a little craft community, and one of the animals doesn't get it, doesn't see the value in that, but then they end up kind of winning him over to crafting. And again, it's just a cute one. We've gotten that one out of this library multiple times, but it was taken out. So Crafty Llama, sweet pictures, value of making and creativity. And then the only one that I have that is specific to crochet, and if you have any recommendations, let me know, because these were obviously all very knit heavy. So if you're a writer, there's a spot for you here to write some crochet books for children. But Daisy's Grandma Loves to Crochet by Daisy Farm Crafts. So she's a crochet designer, and it's written by her and her daughter, Tiffany and Hannah Brown McKay. And I haven't gotten this one in person, but it's available on YouTube, where she reads the book as a read aloud and turns you through the pages. You can also buy the book print on demand. And I believe it includes or incorporates one of her crochet patterns as well. So that's a cute one to check out. Daisy's Grandma Loves to Crochet, and it's kind of just going through the things that she loves to crochet and what will Daisy's grandma crochet today. So that's a sweet way to support someone in our own crochet knit community. But yeah, there's a huge gap in the crochet related books. I have not been able to find really any other children's books that feature crochet as the specific craft. So curious if you know of any others, or if you want to go write one, that'd be great. Maybe I'll add that to my to-do list. But that is my roundup of some crochet and knit and fiber arts related books. Like I said, they're all linked down below in a list, whether you want to reference them to find at your library, or if you want to purchase them off of Amazon or wherever it is you purchase books. Just know that they're down below there, and I hope that you thought this was fun. This is obviously not content that I'm going to do often, but I thought as a mama and a knitter and a crocheter and a homeschooler that we should just mesh that all together. That's what meshing looks like, in case you were wondering. Mesh that all together and give you some recommendations. I do have a previous video on my crochet and knit favorite tools as far as gift guides, but I'm not doing that every year. So this is just something a little different. I thought I'd try, and we'll toss it in. See if anybody finds me, and if not, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for hanging out with me, and we'll get back to the normal actual showing you yarns and knit and crochet and all that stuff soon. Thanks, guys.